Hello and welcome. I am Adam. This is Highly Articulated. I'm very excited about this episode. If you've pretty much watched any episode that we've done, at the very least, I've mentioned Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. It is my most anticipated sort of line coming out in 2023. Shipment and delivery are imminent. Should be coming very soon, sometime this month or in February. So I thought it was time to do a full-on Animal Warriors of the Kingdom episode. And to do that, I've asked my good friend and fellow enthusiast of the AWOK brand, Brick something, to come and join me. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, things are great. Things are good.
It's so you're really excited for these two. I'm really excited for these. We're going to talk about the figures, you know, what we're most excited for in terms of specific figures, head packs, weapons packs. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the comic book, the story, the world building, the lore, and then we're going to touch on the tabletop game as well. That's coming out relatively soon, I presume, as well, for that, because that's the idea, was that once wave 1 is delivered, that, you know, the Kickstarter, we're not a, I don't know, no, it's just a pre-order, it's not a Kickstarter, sorry, the pre-orders should go up. But I think the pre-orders are up, but we'll sort of get into that in a minute. Mike Heck's popping by with the power of awesome, like a Lego that gets stepped on. And Scott Baker is here. What's going on, Scott? Happy to have you, my friend. Let's just get right into it. So Spiro Toys is doing Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. If you're not familiar with it, it is a sort of 6-inch scale or 1/12 scale anthropomorphized animals. There are apes. There are cats. There are other things coming. We've seen some of the, and we won't get into that stuff. We won't get into the, you know, what's coming down the line too far, because I think we're probably going to fill up the time pretty well with you know, what's already sort of on its way. But let's just get right into it. Let's jump in and take a look. What I'm going to do is pull up the Spiro Toys website, and we can sort of use that to navigate and sort of look at, you know, wave 1, wave 2, even the comic books a little bit before we get into it. And then they've got the Primal Battles stuff, as well as sort of where they started. So they started with the 4-inch scale figures. Now these are the deluxe. This is sort of what they've got left. These are really great designs, and I've got a couple of these myself. Actually, I've got the 4-inch version of Pale sitting on my desk right now. These are great figures and really fun. if you're a fan of this line, I would strongly recommend actually grabbing one of these for sort of archival purposes, almost like a where the brand started. Did you pick up any of the 4-inch figures?
I didn't. I generally am collecting around the 7-inch. They say 6-inch, but these are bigger
Yeah, they're a
figures.
little,
They kind
yeah.
of like, yeah. So I kind of hover around those, but I really do. So you were saying they started those figures, but and I will get to it in a second. But they started as a comics, right? And
Yeah.
so the was it like a husband wife team? Because I saw both their last names on the original comic. Started that. So Jason
Yeah.
um, wrote that original comic book, and it had more of this sort of a different style artwork. It kind of reminded me of like sort of like what they would call like sort of new school graffiti kind of
Hmm.
and new school tattoo style with these exaggerated features. But
Hmm.
what's really cool about those 4-inch figures is they kind of mimic that style. And
Yeah.
I actually like the look of those figures even more so than I did the original artwork. There's something about them in 3D,
Right.
like with the stylized big heads. I don't know if you could hold those up, but or what you have. Um, I don't know. They look really cool the way they worked on those proportions. Yeah, there's something about that was really sort of charming.
Hmm.
Um, and I've never actually seen one, so I'm curious. But that said, when they announced this and they had the Kickstarter, I was kind of my ears perked up, sort of watched, and then by the time really like Masterverse, I think is where I finally like pulled the trigger and said, I'm going to buy figures again and collect more than one.
Yeah.
And oh, these kind of work together. So that's
Yeah.
how my AWOK journey began. But anyway.
The 4-inch figures for me were more of a novelty because I was sort of in anticipation of these 6-inch figures. I'm the same. Most of my collection is in that sort of 112, 6-inch, 7-inch, 110 scale. Whether it's
Mm-hmm.
Mythic Legions or GI Joe Classified or Marvel Legends or what have you. So these sort of fit in. These work really well with the Super 7 stuff as well, if you're sort of wondering about scale. Um, and yeah, they're just really, really awesome. You've got some great designs, great paint decos. The articulation on these looks to be phenomenal from the posing videos that we've seen from Jason and others.
Mm-hmm.
Should we just go through the figures and just, or what's your most anticipated of Wave One?
Oh man, I think the standout is definitely going to be the big boy, which actually I guess isn't wave one, right?
No, he's
Thane isn't
technically
wave
Wave
one. He's now in wave,
1.5.
right?
And on the
But
website too, they kind of mixed this up because they're showing like Wave 2.5, I think, which is like the game wave as well as
mhm.
Wave 1. Like these ones are, this guy here, well, you see when I hover over it, this guy will come with the board game as an
Yep,
exclusive figure. This
yep.
one comes with 2 heads, so you can army build. I thought this one came with 2 heads as well. This one is sort of a
That's newer.
Thane-sized figure for army building for the Horde. But as far as Wave One goes, it's effectively the two army builders, the Chinari
Yep, yep.
Legionary and the Horde Ravager, Atreyu, Tiberius, Pale, and Kali. Pale in the adventure armor, Kali in the conquest armor.
Yeah,
Um,
so I guess for me, when I saw these, you mentioned that video, or I don't know if we mentioned in the intro, but I also did this video around AWOK, but kind of like focused it around or anchored it around this conversation of like, why do these things resonate with me so much? And
yeah.
a lot of it has to do with this sort of like seemingly universal trope, if you will, of anthropomorphized animals, right? Animals that can walk, talk, and do all those kinds of things, which is really interesting when we start talking about the lore with these characters. But so on that note, like I've loved things like Planet of the Apes as a
Hmm.
kid. I wasn't quite born yet, I don't think, but I remember those as a kid and they
Hmm.
stuck, and later Thundercats. So it's a toss up between Kali for me, like that is like super regal, Planet of the Apes kind of ape shall, ape shall not kill ape kind of guy.
Yeah.
And Tiberius, actually. Atreyu's dope looking, but Tiberius with that sort of coloring, just there's a lot that pops out. That was actually, I think, the character that I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna
That was the one that
click
was
on.
like,
I'm gonna add to cart first,
yeah.
and then while I'm here, what else can I add to cart?
Yeah, for me, it was it was Kali, which was the one that was like that colorway. So navy, gold, and purple is a colorway that really works for me. I've said this a million times, like red and black, I'm so bored of. Like if Kali had been red and black, I would have been like, pass. But the purple and gold and navy to me is so regal and so like historically purple has been sort of a very regal color. It's sort of a sign of royalty. I believe because purple's a really hard color to achieve in dyeing garments. But then I sort of read a couple of the bios and I was like, okay, so Pale is the main character, and Pale definitely got my attention because he just looks cool. And then the more I sort of got into the lore, the more I was really excited about Pale. And then it was again, if anybody sort of listens to me talk about collecting, as soon as I have a good guy, I have to have a bad guy and vice versa. And then as soon as I had those two, I was the same thing. I was like, well, if I'm going to get a couple figures shipped, I got to make it worthwhile. And usually, to make it worthwhile, you're looking at 3 or 4. So my 3 and 4 were actually these two guys right here, Atreyu and Tiberius. And then the more I sort of looked at the line and the more I got into the bios and then the comic book and then so on and so forth, then I was like, all right, I'm getting all of them. So I got a couple of each of these guys coming as well. And then the Wave 1.5 and can't wait to get the Wave 2 stuff. And Thane, as you mentioned, just an absolutely stunning figure. Let's take a look at Thane, actually, since we're talking about it. But this is the Wave 2 stuff. So this stuff should ship in a couple months. So my understanding is that Wave 2 got delayed a little bit, so they kind of bumped Wave 1 to make sure that it got on the boat before Chinese New Year. Wave 2 is basically manufactured but not assembled, and I may be speaking out of turn, so don't quote me on this, but these should be coming, as it says right there, March 2023, which means, if they get completed in February and on a boat, we should have them before too long. And I'm kind of cool with that because I think if we got Waves 1 and 2 all at once, it might be like too much, and we might sort of not spend enough time with the first wave. Like this is a great way, at least for me personally, to kind of slow down and sort of appreciate the figures that we get first, so that I have sort of more time with each wave, which is never a bad thing. But
it's funny.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it's funny you say that, but when I was going over my list of what did I actually end up ordering, and I remember thinking like, man, this is going to be a lot coming in, and part of me was like, just the being overwhelmed with unboxing them could potentially take away, like it's now becomes more laborious than sort of just let me just savor and enjoy.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's so if we get, kind of six figures plus accessory packs and head packs. I think the head packs might be shipping with Wave 2, as well as the Primal Ancients, which I don't think appear on the website, but we'll touch on those if we feel like it, because I know where I can bring up pictures of those too. But Wave 2, we've got General Thane, we've got Blight, we've got Lexion, Cordoon, and the Kickstarter exclusive Vero Atlas, who is also one of my favorites. The colorway on that is also phenomenal. Again, the purple with the gold doing it for me. He's also got this really cool spear that has this sort of crystal dagger tip, which is unique to this character. As I've said before to people who I'm trying to persuade to get into the line, if you only get one figure, I would say if you can get Vero Atlas, being that he's a Kickstarter exclusive, that might not be a bad idea. and I know that there's only one production run for Vero Atlas. So get it now or forever be paying a late fee if you try to track them down at a later date.
On that
But
note, I think they already will. If you notice, unfortunately, he's priced at $50.
oh, is he?
And if
Oh
you
yeah,
go
he's
back, yeah, he's priced at $50. And if you go back, it's listed as unavailable. So,
Oh,
and I didn't do the Kickstarter. I did the what do they call it? The backer kit, kind of a little bit later.
yep, yep.
And he was available. And I went through one of those things. It's like, man, I've ordered a lot here, and started like taking things out of my order.
Uh,
And for whatever reason, he was one that I took out of the order. But I'm gonna have a lot of cats and apes, so I'm good. I'm good. But
Fair enough.
yeah, I noticed that price right there. It's $50,
I
and
didn't even
so
notice that. I didn't even notice that because I've already ordered two.
yep.
And I was
There you
just
go. Even on the primary market, you've already made some money.
I, even if I sell it at this retail, I've made money. Yeah, exactly. I just love this figure, and I love the purple armor, and because the armor is swappable, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the let's pull this guy up again here and take a look. So the wrist gauntlets, the strap, the skirting, and the sort of shin guards, all
Yeah.
that stuff is swappable. It pops off super easy. So there was certain figures that I bought extras just to get the gear, just to get a little bit of a head start on fodder for building custom figures, which is something that Jason has mentioned. There's going to be more accessory packs, there's going to be more armor packs, so on and so forth, so that the ease and ability to sort of create your own custom figures by
Yeah.
way of lazy boy customs or kit bashes will be very, very possible. Um, these guys
That
are
term, sorry, you brought that up yesterday on stream. LBC, lazy boy coming. There's something about that feels so pejorative and admittedly sexist, where it's just like, hey man, it's cool. It's actually a part of the play feature, right? And I think
yeah.
between Legions, as we've talked about, and the Lego behind me, and these, and Origins, Masters
Hmm.
Universe Origins, I really wish people would like start to recognize that as a play feature, because I think what it
Hmm.
does is it one extends the life of our toys. It's a whole other way to play, and kind of like in terms of imagination, my kids do this all the time with our Lego. It's sort of like, yeah, I know that figure, Papa, that's a rare figure and it costs, but I don't like this part. And they start tossing parts everywhere and recombining because they want to create this character. There's something real cool about that. And there's somewhere out there, I forget if on what social media it is, but there's a thread of me like kind of interrogating, bugging, being annoying with Jason. Like, so wait, this armor comes off, right? Exactly. Where does it come out? Because there weren't pictures at that time.
Yeah,
And that
yeah, yeah.
I was investigating exactly what you're saying is like, how, to what extent can I change these things up? And it
Hmm.
definitely impacted my order, because I was like, okay, cool. I like this character as is. I want to change some things. I think I'll get a second, and started doing that whole game.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, that's a piece. And then I think at a certain point, we hit all those accessories, and clearly, like, and the studio started talking a little bit more that this idea of popping and swapping and switching things out is definitely a part of the appeal of this line and the features of this line. So
Hmm.
even with
Uh,
heads, right? They started creating additional headsets.
yeah, and they're not on here now. I don't know if that's just an oversight or if they're if they're not available. Maybe they're sort of sold out effectively. But let me just quickly pull up a different screen. As I'm often prone to do, I'm going to pull up the eCollectibles website, which is a Canadian online retailer who is doing Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. My good buddy Mike over at eCollectibles and I talked about this line, and I think it's going to blow up. I think this line, once it's in hand, once people start getting pictures out and stuff of these figures, they're going to be really, really excited, and that's going to rub off. There's going to be sort of that FOMO of people sort of picking up stuff. And this is just an example of one of the head packs. So this is the Feral Felines head pack. So for, I think it was like $15 US, 23 Canadian through eCollectibles, which I think after the exchange is a pretty dang good deal for you guys.
It
But
was
each head pack
12
has,
here.
that's $12, or the head pack was $12. Yeah.
Yeah.
Three
Sorry.
heads for that price? No, absolutely. That's fine.
I meant sorry to the Canadians.
It's, you know what happens is as soon as you get shipping, and as soon as you get the the FedEx processing fees and all that kind of stuff, ordering from a Canadian retailer it just makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
I like, the thing that I can't stand is when the delivery driver shows up and he's like, "Hey, you owe me $80 or you can't have these." And I'm like, well, I don't want to pay you $80.
Wow.
I mean, I would rather pay the retailer more money. Like, I'd rather that $80 go to Mike at eCollectibles than FedEx, personally. So that's just sort of how I think about it. But three heads for that price, I think, is still a pretty reasonable price, whether you're getting that US price or the Canadian price. And these are going to be color matched to figures. So these heads right here, you know, the white one is going to be color matched to that Vero Atlas, the red one to Cordoon, and the gray one to Lexion. And if you're not sort of familiar with the names and you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, that's fine. You don't have to. But needless to say, there is customizing options. There's lots of fun stuff to do. The Primal Ancients, like I was mentioning, are these sort of base model figures that don't come with weapons, don't really come with armor, just options to customize, to sort of expand, so that, you know, not all your, in this case, your Chinari soldiers look the same, right? You can have different bodies underneath the armor, because the armor is swappable. So just a lot of fun with the line. There's tons of stuff to pick up. You know, wave 1 shipping relatively soon. Wave 1.5 should be shortly after that, with wave 2 as well. And then, as we said, the game wave, which I think they've given it a name, the Primal Battles wave, will be coming sooner rather than later as well. Just so many cool toys, and they're just
real quick, on that note, sorry, with the armor and everything, some of the earlier marketing pieces, one, I appreciated that when they were kind of talking about these figures, what also caught me was that Jason would post these photos and kind of go out of his way to sort of show these prototypes next to other lines, right? So we saw them next to G.I. Joe Classified and Masterverse and Origins, even kind of had the Mythic Legions. And then later, as things started developing, I think it was even at PowerCon where they showed the figures with Masterverse armor, Origins armor, Mythic Legions armor, like kind of like using these different things. So again, if you're a collector of some of these other lines, you can mix and match parts between AWOK and some of these other lines, which is like really, again, super exciting for those of us who love to do that kind of thing. There's a lot of sort of interplay, and I think that's super smart, especially from a lot of these sort of like smaller indie companies or newer startup companies who recognize that like people are pretty entrenched in the things that they collect. And the idea of saying, hey, there's this whole new thing that you don't know anything about the story or whatever that we kind of want you to check out. And oh, by the way, they work perfectly and seamlessly with the other figures. Super smart. I think that's where it's just about, I want folks to hear that and know that, because I think that has become more and more of a play feature. Once I sort of saw, you know, Mythic Legions was doing it, but again, a smaller company, smaller fan base relative to, say, Hasbro and Mattel's market. But then you've got Mattel, who came out with the Origins line. And again, I don't know that they didn't advertise it as such, right? But I think as started people getting their hands on it, they're like, oh, these arms pop off, these heads
Yeah.
pop off. I can switch these parts in. And then they did the Masters of the WWEU, same thing, right?
Right.
They use the bodies, but they came with, I forgot to mention this, they came with Masters of the Universe Classics parts, usually the same molds, repainted.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got like this glut of accessories that can
Mm-hmm.
move, and you've got people doing that. So it's like, hey, here's a new toy line. And really the characters and the heads and the body types aren't necessarily ones that are, say, abundant in either Legions or any of
Mm-hmm.
these Motu toy lines. So I don't know. That's where I'm coming from. That's kind of where my head's been. And I don't know, like you, I'm super excited about all the things that are coming. The only other thing that I don't think we've mentioned is when you're showing those heads, they look so different and so unique. But again, it's that parts reuse. A lot of those heads are heads from the other figures just painted, and they're animals, right? So you can have spots, you can have stripes, you can have that Planet of the Apes style paint on one of those ape heads that was totally
Mm-hmm.
like, I was one of those who saw that head and was like, okay, I must find another figure that will use this body. So it's like, okay, easy. I'm getting another oh my gosh, what, not, is it Blight?
Blight. Yeah.
Pale, and yeah, I'm getting another Blight because I want him, if I'm thinking about that right, he's got the black body.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted that Caesar-esque. That's just awesome looking.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, I'm not sure on this, but I wonder, because I thought that maybe Jason showed like the heads on other things, but maybe not. I don't know how interchangeable heads are. Do you happen to know?
I don't, and that was a question that I asked as well, because I had asked, and he didn't know the answer either. So that was
Okay.
the answer that I got, was I don't know, from Jason, and it was partly because what happens is, when the modelers and the sculptors and sort of the people making the figures are doing it, they're not really thinking about that unless somebody has sort of specifically said that.
Same.
And so if they had said, hey, the spec for the head sort of ball joint will be X, then it might have happened, but that wasn't really something that they had thought of at the time. So it'll be a wait and see kind of thing, I guess, because I haven't heard any update on that in that respect. But let me quickly, because you mentioned it, and because I found a picture. This is my one criticism, is that it's not always easy to find some of this stuff, because they're kind of all over the place. But this is from Jason's Facebook. This is a couple pictures that he's done just with his figures. So that's the Masterverse He-Man. That's a Super 7 Raphael.
That's so cool.
That's so that's the Super 7 Mumra the Ever Living, and then some Masterverse figures there, just to sort of give you an idea. And he had another one here, a Plunderling.
Yeah.
Pale holding a Plunderling. But yeah, so there's the potential for these to sort of fit into other things as well. Like if you're not sort of all in on Animal Warriors of the Kingdom yet, you could grab one figure just to sort of slot in somewhere in terms of your collection, and then go from there. We've neglected the chat here, but I definitely do want to jump in here and say hello to everybody. And if I don't mention you, I apologize. There's a bunch of people sort of commenting, but Oscar Damas Toys is in the house. Carol Geis, Masterversal Toy Hunter. Austin's hanging out, says Adam shaved. I don't like change. As I was saying to Rick before, I'm going on vacation and I don't want to pack a razor, so I just got rid of everything and start fresh.
You don't want a beard tan too.
Who's that kid hosting the show? Yeah, I mean, I asked my kids, I was like, do you prefer when I'm shaved or when I have a beard? And my 7-year-old said beard, and my 3-year-old very kindly said, however, I love you, however. And I was like, oh, you're just too lazy to answer the question, maybe. But Oz says I hide behind my beard. um, a lot of beard talk. Scott said, "Me too, Oz. My security blanket." Master Versal, I think, has got everybody beat as far as beards go. Scott said that Blight color scheme does it for me so good. I'm trying to catch up. I'm hoping, if you guys have it, what's your favorite figure that you're sort of most anticipating? Oz says purple was the most expensive color to make and was once held by the most wealthy in the old world, also known as royal blue back then, which is funny because royal blue now is like really bright blue. Austin said, I hear AWOK may benefit by having a photographer. Maybe, we'll see. If you know anybody, maybe put that name forward. Scott said, do we know if the comics and the making of book from the Kickstarter will be shipping with Wave 1? I believe they are, if you mean the print version of the comics, and the sort of behind the scenes book. As far as I know, they are. That I haven't confirmed. I've gotten all the digital copies, just because logistically that was easier than having floppies, mailed to me. I'm definitely excited to get the floppies. I mean, I've got my desk is covered in comic books as well that I'm trying to get through before I go on holiday. So I'm still living in that sort of print media world. And I still want comic books. Let's see. Scott Baker mentioned that Bureau Atlas is still available on Big Bad Toy Store.
Oh.
He is also available from eCollectibles.ca if you're in Canada, or if you would like to go with Mike ships to the US as well. So, and I think its shipping's really cheap actually. And that's
pardon me for a second while I go and make an order on Big Bad Toy Store.
Yeah, exactly. No problem. So like we said, the figures look great, and we both sort of got into the figures first, because that was effectively the first thing that came out. Mm-hmm. But you and I both, Brick, I think, really enjoy media that ties sort of our interest to a character, to development of a character. If you can connect with a character, you're more inclined to purchase it and keep it, right, long term. So on that note, Spiro also does the comic books. So right now the digital copies are still available through their website, and they are available for the very, very reasonable price of $2 US per issue. Now, comic books aren't for everybody, and $2 isn't nothing. I mean, they're not giving them away, but I mean, $2 is pretty dang cheap. Brick, you and I have both read all of the comic books. What about you guys in the chat? Have you guys read the comic books? Have you got the comic books? Let me know. But the comic books for me are just they just sort of put some of the characters over the edge for me. Like I was saying, although I didn't say it, the comic books for me were what made me pull the trigger on a bunch more figures. Because once I saw the characters in the book and sort of saw the like who they were, I guess, in some capacity, I was more inclined and more compelled to pick up the figures. Like I said, those ones from sort of the Wave 1 is kind of the figures that we get introduced to in the first book, and then sort of Wave 2 as well. But then there's more characters that we get, like in issue 3, where there's more pipeline figures coming to sort of catch up to some of the comic book stuff. But what were your first impressions of the comic book, Brick?
So I think for me, again, I'm really sort of aesthetically driven, and so I don't necessarily need the story, right? I was the same
Hmm.
with Masters of the Universe as a kid. It was just like seeing a skeleton head on this body. It was like, I want that. And then you get the mini comics, and then it was like a year later before we got Filmation. So
Right.
there's something about the design and the concept that draws me in, and it kind of allowed me to create my own story. Then when I read
Hmm.
these, um, fully like, I'm just kind of like, oh, yeah, kind of see what story they're going to lay out. But I was actually really pulled in, and I guess I don't know if you want to do the spoiler. I'll be careful with spoilers, but I'll just sort of say that there was a sci-fi element that I hadn't realized, that kind of like perked my ears up. And then all of a sudden it's kind of got this clearly sort of like young adult YA kind of like hero's journey, because Pale's a youngish character who is the prince of this sort of kingdom.
Yeah.
And you kind of follow him and kind of figure out who he is in relation to the conflict in the world, and this character that's set up as sort of the villain and their empire. And you sort of see him trying to figure out, like, what is my place in the world, in my kingdom, right? He's got this father that's the big gorilla Thane, who's like clearly this like adept, skilled king and warrior,
Hmm.
right? And Pale's kind of the brash young, like, I just want to fight and adventure or whatever. And
Hmm.
all of those pieces totally are like, just work with me, given everything else that I love, right?
Hmm.
It's Lion-O, it's Luke, it's all of those things, right? And then of course the Planet of the Apes stuff, it's there too, right? The settings there, I already said Thundercats. So yeah, I love it. And then the story that they've crafted, I didn't even know that the third one was out, right? I had 1 and 2.
Hmm.
And then we were talking, I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I just read it last night, and late last night. And I was kind of, oh, okay. Like, as you said, this is when it kicks into high gear. And it's true. It does two things. That third issue tells us a little bit more about the larger lore and where things are going. But
Hmm.
it also manages to introduce this whole other kingdom, right? Or this, I realize it's called Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, but maybe kingdom is kingdoms, right? It's much like your Game of Thrones with different families, and it's a sort of feudal society. There's people who play more of a farmer or kind of role or whatever, and that builds out the world a little bit more. And I got sucked in to the idea of like, okay, we got to hear about these different houses and kingdoms. There's these different characters. Oh crap, like this could go anywhere with the types of characters we're going to be seeing and the types of animals we're going to be seeing. So fully into it. It's a great read. Great art. Like, I am that was always my thing as a kid too. What is the name? Is it Prasta? Yeah. uh yeah, there it
It's
is.
I don't know. This
Utama
doesn't want to.
Prasta, I want to say. Um,
Yeah. This is not. I was gonna. You know what? I was gonna show up, but I'm not gonna bother.
no, it's good.
So we'll
I
just.
think visuals. Is it the PDF is hard to navigate?
Yeah, the PDF is every time I sort of switch between the StreamYard window and the PDF window, it keeps moving and shifting.
Right,
So
right, right.
so we'll chat about it, and we won't look too closely at it. Um, or let me see. Okay, let me see. I'll
Even
try to
when you
sort of.
had it and just didn't really touch it, just having it up there, I don't know. There's something
Yeah,
about.
that's what I think I might do. Is what I'll do is I'll just sort of pick a random page and just sort of put it up, because I think that's better than nothing. Um, let's
But
see
even
if.
looking at that art, if you see the art,
Well, that's
it's
what I want
really
people to see
really good stuff.
is how good the art is and how good the
Hmm.
coloring is,
Hmm.
and it's I wanted to try to get rid of like this stuff up here, right? Like when you're looking at a PDF, it's got all this stuff that you can adjust.
Yeah. Are you in
Um,
preview?
yeah, but then like if I go to the like full view, that's when it started getting weird. But anyway, so this is issue 1. Let me just put this up here quickly before we go any further. We will we're going to sort of
Hmm.
go over the first little section of the first book, which won't give away too much. I've sort of read it a few times just to make sure that it wasn't going to be like any huge revelations that sort of came through. But then I'm only going to show the first little bit of the comic book, and then we'll talk about issues 2 and issue 3. So just to very quickly sort of skim through the first bit, I'm going to try to go quickly enough that you can't read it and you kind of won't ruin anything. I'll just paraphrase sort of what's going on. So the first thing that we get is Chunar, the famed hidden stronghold of the apes, where they live, strive, and flourish. We see Pale in a sort of gladiator pit with Thane, who is revealed to be his father. We get introduced to his mother, and then why don't we make this so that it fits a little bit better? There we go. Can you still see that okay? No, it's a little bit better if it's bigger, right? And then we learn that the Horde is attacking the Chinari caravan, and so the Chinari sort of rush out to protect their own. They meet the Horde. They meet Kali. A brief battle ensues. There's cool stuff like I just wanted to show these. So like
Yeah, I
there's
was
these
gonna say,
mounts.
could you zoom in? Yes.
There's like these really cool mounts that they ride, which is sort of a four-legged horned horse type animal. There's
That
also this thing. Where did it go? There's
the
this like
insects.
dragonfly
Whew.
sort of mech vehicle that they also fly on. So that was the thing that actually shocked me a little bit when I read it. That sort of caught me off guard is that there's a. I was thinking it was like a primal thing, and then when the figures had like guns, it seemed odd to me. But
Mm.
then when you figure out the sci-fi sort of angle and sort of how that plays into the world,
Yep.
it made it so much cooler to me. I was so
Yep.
much more excited, and it fit. When I saw the figures and the guns, I was like, oh, the guns don't fit for me. I read the first book and I was like, these guns make perfect sense. The origin of these different animals, whether they're cats, whether they're apes, whether they're elephants, whether they're you know buffalo or wolf or bear, like there's all the different animals are represented. Rabbits will come up in issue 3. But how they got here is revealed relatively early. It's in issue 1. The battle sort of finishes. The Horde kind of takes off. The Chinari sort of retreat, and then we get this, where it says, "Pale, it's time we tell you the truth." Pale
Yep.
says, "The truth about what? About
Dun
who?
dun
About what you
dun.
really are and where you came from." And then we get a really cool. So this one they've actually sort of put, and I won't read it. I'll make it small enough that you won't be able to read it. But there's a very very quick, very concise, sort of here's the world that we're in.
Yeah.
And it's executed really really well. This story is well written. As you've seen, the art is fantastic, the coloring is fantastic. It's just a really great book. It's just a really fun book.
Are you not? You're not. So I was wondering, how much are you gonna say? And before you get out of there, well, first, were you trying not to say?
Well, that was
Which is
sort of
fine.
my
The answer is fine. I wasn't
that
sure.
was my that was my intro. So now we're gonna get into spoilers. And if you're
Okay,
watching and you don't
got
want
it.
to hear the spoilers, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to hold Brick back at this point because,
Well,
you
I can
seem
hold
keen to.
back. I'm just asking. I guess I'm asking for permission rather than apologizing.
I'm gonna say go for it. I'm gonna say, we're 45 minutes in. You and I have read 3 issues. This is a little
Yes.
bit like the Last Ronin, the TMNT Last Ronin. If you don't know who
Yeah.
the Last Ronin is by now, I think the cat's out of the bag. This is sort of that same thing. If you're 45 minutes into a Animal Warriors of the Kingdom episode, and you haven't read the comic books, either stick around and hear about the comic books, or jump off now, go buy the books, and watch the rest of this in replay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, let's get right into it. Let's get into the lore. Let's get into the world, because I have so many questions. Like, after I read it, I was just messaging Jason. I was like, okay, what about this? What about this? Does this mean that this is
Yeah.
possible? Does this mean that this? And then I was like, you know what? Don't answer any of those. We'll wait until the figures come out. We'll wait a couple more issues, and he and I are gonna do a video where I'm gonna ask him all those questions and try to get all those answers.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we'll just go on what's in the actual content of what we've got. Um, Brick, do you want to do you want to sort of go into where these apes and felines and various species came from?
I really, really do. And I will say this, because we live in a time where two things, spoiler culture, right, or anti-spoiler culture, like that's a thing. And I get it.
Yeah,
But two, part of the reason you and I wanted to talk about this line independently, right? When I created my video, it was more so like what I was thinking was like, I'm looking at these awesome things, but I'm not seeing
yeah,
anyone talking about it.
yes,
And I love these things and I want you all to hear about it. And you know, and so you were coming at it from a similar place. And so they took the time to create this world. And actually, Jason has been kind of mulling over these characters. He started this all as a comic book, a sort of different version of this
hmm
comic book that we see
hmm
here. So he had these ideas for these characters, and then eventually landed on this toy place as a forum for which to tell the story or continue the story. So I say all that because, like, knowing that not enough people know about it, and two, like, we know that modern entertainment, like when we were growing up, the entertainment was pretty helpful for a lot of people to get into lines. And what we're really asking, and what Jason's asking, this tiny toy company is asking for people who have Netflix and HBO Max and Disney Plus and all these things to, one, remember comic books, right? And
yeah,
then
true.
two, out of all of these things, you could be watching like all sorts of cartoons right now, whether it's Motu or whatever, right? There's all sorts of things out there. I think it's good. Let's cut through it a little bit and reveal some of that stuff. And it is in issue 1, right? He's real quick about it. So I
hmm
just want to say that, as also just in general, check it out, folks. Like,
It's so
it's,
good.
yeah, it's really good. It's cool. Like, I would love to see this someday maybe get translated into animation, or, you know, like, just
That's
saying, just throwing it out there.
that's Jason's goal. Like, that's the thing,
Mm-hmm.
is like he's dreaming big. And I mean, when we talk
Yep.
about the tabletop game, I'll sort of mention a couple of those other things
Cool,
as well.
cool,
But like
cool.
Jason's idea, Jason's motivation with this line is for this to be Motu or Thundercats, or pick your 80s slash 90s property that had an animated
Mm-hmm.
series and a comic book tie-in and lunch boxes and wrapping paper and toothbrushes. um, and and I think it's possible. I mean, the strength of this story is really there. It's just a matter of
Yep.
whether or not enough people you know buy into it and sort of pay attention to it. But you and I both agree that, why isn't this bigger already? Because we both
Yep.
absolutely love it,
Yep.
and
Yep. Yep.
can't wait to sort of get more. Like, I'm constantly messaging Jason, like, okay, so I've got issue 3 now. When is issue 4 coming out? And they're working on it. Like, they've got. And I will say this: they so the first story arc is 5 issues. That was sort of what they mapped out initially. um, they've got another 10 issues mapped out now. So
Okay.
this could go on for a while. And it's reassuring to me to know that they're already thinking about what they're going to do next.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And anticipation that the line is gonna take off, and that more people are going to be paying attention. So
All right. Well, before I totally spoil, you kind of went over some of it, but if I may, I just like didn't want to gloss over, like, take a look at these things that they're coming
yeah,
up with in terms of building out the world, right? You saw the sort of like dragonfly-esque character or creature, or I don't know, vehicle. You saw the sort of like those, yeah, this is, if you couldn't see it earlier, I mean, it is full on like mechanic. I
hmm
don't Um,
It reminds me of Sectars.
Sectars, baby, one of my surprise, surprise, one of my favorite toy
Yeah.
lines growing up. We saw again these steeds, and you know me and my creatures. And I mean, I just want to show. I don't know how many people are Planet of the Apes fans, but that's fully Planet of the Apes. So where do they come from? Actually, even before that, because I can't help myself. You named a couple of different creatures, but like, we've seen apes. How about elephants?
The
Like,
Pachydyne Kingdom.
could these be coming? Could these sort of water buffalo,
They
carabao from the
could.
Philippines? That's the thing, right? Like, this is where we could potentially be going with this. That said, so I know it's like been suspenseful. What was happening in that panel? What was he explaining? And as you said, it's kind of like, hey, let me let you into a secret. Let me tell you really what's going on with you and us. And it's a secret that has been carried by generations. I'm not going to linger too long because you really should get the comic yourself. So one of these sort of older matrons who is on her deathbed is like, it's time. And they come not from the world that we're seeing, but they come from a different place. And I don't know if that place looks familiar to people. But essentially they come from here, right? That's like, they are how do I say this? They are from Earth, right? They came from Earth. Earth, surprise, surprise, didn't make it. For whatever reason, I don't think they fully said why, but for whatever reason, Earth was no longer habitable, and people got onto or some beings got onto a spaceship and traveled, and now they're traveling. And so the question is, well, who are these animals?
Multiple
And so they haven't fully, yes, multiple spaceships, correct.
And I want to know if that could play out.
Yes, anyway. Where is everybody else? And
I'll pause
there for a second, because again, the comparisons to things like Thundercats are inescapable, and it's clear. I didn't know, and you sort of shared clearly, like there's something that was inspiring Jason when they're doing these things. And when you look at Thundercats, the idea of like their planet dying, etc. And I don't know if anyone ever watched the sort of, from my perspective, criminally underrated the 2000s Thundercats show, but what they started laying out in that too was also interesting and kind of familiar, because there was also a ship with a bunch of sort of animal creatures, right? Anthropomorphized animal creatures that were essentially doing the bidding of this person in charge. And it was kind of like an arc. And we learned that the cats, or the Thundercats, were like that. And so were the sort of reptilians of Sly. We saw them there. We even saw tiger sharks in the background in that thing. And so obviously for me, I was just like, oh my God, that opens up a whole lot of possibilities. And why don't you reveal? So like, what's the deal? Are these animals from Earth, or
So the way they set it up, there's all these ships go out. There's a malfunction on this particular ship. So it sort of seems like each ship went to a different planet, in the same way that we've seen in sort of other stories, other IPs. There was a sort of an issue or something with the ship that they were on. It manipulated their sort of genetic coding in an attempt to sort of eliminate some of the flaws that they had existing. But unfortunately, it seems to have only changed their physical appearance, but they were still prone to, war and fighting and so on and so forth. I think the obvious motivation there is that this is a nature thing, that this is just in us, that our animal instincts will always come through. It gets really interesting at the end of issue 3, how this sort of interplay between these sort of humanoid animals that used to be humanoid. Now the old woman in that first bit and Kali are revealed to be the last of the originals. Um, and then we kind of find out, it's alluded to, but it's not completely confirmed, that this is the way that every creature after this is born. But we start getting into cloning, where there's people experimenting with this DNA and sort of what the AI has done to manipulate the genetics, how they themselves may manipulate the genetics. In issue 2, actually at the end of issue 1, but sort of more so in issue 2, we learned that Kali doesn't look old, because he's not, because his sort of in-house scientist, right hand woman, has been developing clones. We learned that Kali has different clones. There are smaller clones, there are bigger, kind of brutish clones, there are smarter ones, there are more animal ones, so on and so forth. Which opens up the possibility to so many amazing Kali figures.
Yep.
You could get a Thane-sized Kali at some point. We also learn, and this is sort of the big reveal of issue 1, and then this becomes sort of the main motivation for Pale. This is sort of the big reveal. Pale.
Would you?
It's a spoiler alert. If people, this is.
Yeah, it's fine.
Pale.
No, it was more so I was thinking about, we revealed the world, which comes up. Anyways, whatever. You're right. You're right.
I think this is a big one, and I think this one is like,
it's a great one.
It's a great one, and it kind of drives the story forward after that too. So I won't go too much past this point. Pale is a clone that was meant to become, a body for Kali. So Jadu is Kali's scientist, Dr. Mindbender type, and she can sort of transfer Kali's consciousness into these clones. But Mala there, who we believe to be Pale's mother, turns out isn't exactly Pale's mother, but has sort of adopted this clone.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's some sexy apes that we might want to get rid of.
It's because we were talking about procreation.
Yeah, totally. And they're like, hey, perfect.
And Jason's here, or
yes.
stopped in at least. So if we're wrong, if any of this is if we get this wrong, at least he can correct us. Whether he'll do that in the comments or whether he'll message me, I don't know. But yeah, so we've got sort of Mala, who has effectively stolen this clone, that seems to be like the perfected version, or sort of the version of the clone that is not prone to some of the issues that the other clones have been. So that's where that sort of gets really interesting in terms of who Pale is, and who all these characters are, and how they sort of what their relationships are. The crazy thing is, Kali didn't know about this. When Kali and Pale meet in that first issue, Kali didn't know that Pale was a clone of him, and that Pale was kind of the version of the clone that they were sort of aspiring to through this sort of testing phase. But I mean, if that doesn't interest you, then don't read the comic. If that then there's way more to it than that. That's sort of like in a nutshell.
When we were when we were streaming yesterday, you're like, no, issue 3 is out. And I was like, all right, I got to go check on it. And I don't know if you remember in the stream, I kind of held this guy up. And then in issue 3, there's that boar, and I was like, oh, so yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, issue 3, like we won't get too, we won't get too deep into it. We won't get too sort of stuck in the weeds in terms of details, but we sort of showed the art. We've sort of given you an idea of sort of where this story is going. As I said, it's $2 for the first 3 issues. Go pick them up if you haven't. You know what? If you're watching this right now and you don't have the comic book and you'd like it, message me and I will buy you the first issue because it's $2 and I don't mind doing that. There's not enough people watching that it's gonna break me financially. So just let me know. Because I think it's fantastic and I support it, completely. As I've said, like I've got a desk full of comic books. I got a shelf next to me full of comic books,
Nice.
boxes and boxes of comic books. I say this as a comic book reader. This is a good comic book. This isn't just and I said this to you yesterday, Brick. This isn't just one of those toy brand comic books where they're just shoehorning characters in so that they can like release another wave of figures. This is like legitimately a well-written and well-executed comic book. And if the figures stopped, I would still hope that the comic book kept going. That's how I feel about the comic.
Yeah, I hear that. But Jason, if you're still here, we definitely need a Laranja figure. I need an orangutan on my shelf. Just saying. Yeah, I noticed it. Yeah, that was a good face. Yeah, that's great, especially without the beard. Without the beard, I can fully read that face.
Now, right? So, yeah, the orangutan is in the works, to the best of my knowledge. And now Jason's here, and I'm gonna feel like I'm speaking out of school a little bit. But the orangutan, the big bad at the end of issue 2, the rabbit in issue 3. The female characters are coming in wave, I want to say wave 3, but I think it's called the Mala wave now because it's technically the 4th wave. Anyway, so there's the answer to your question, Brick, from the man himself. We already have him designed. They've got a lot of them designed too. Like we could go and do another hour of like I said at the beginning, we're not going to do this because we could do another hour of the figures that haven't been revealed, that like we've just seen sort of pipeline reveals and design reveals for, and some of the stuff that sort of I've heard wind of certain things that are coming that I'm like, how would that even work? That's going to be so awesome. The scale of the pachydynes. So if the elephants, fingers crossed, the elephants get made, the scale will be correct. So the elephants will be like Mythic Legion's troll type size. And I mean, come on, like, can you imagine? That's the thing. Jason says first AWOK figure with soft goods. Is that the is that the orangutan you're saying? I thought the crow was going to be the first AWOK figure with soft goods, but maybe that's changed. Things change, it's man, so much exciting
wait,
stuff.
Whoa. You said crow?
What did I say, crow?
Did you say the what was the first? What did you say was the first soft goods?
Well, I was under the impression that the first AWOK figure that was going to come with soft goods was in fact the crow. But I think Jason said the first with soft goods will be the orangutan.
So you're saying crow as in CROW? I just wanted to clarify.
Correct.
Oh, I didn't even know that was coming. So awesome.
Or raven. I don't know if it's a crow or a raven or what, but it's a black winged.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly have we seen those designs yet? Or
well, I can't speak for everybody else. I've seen.
Okay, I haven't.
And they're out there in the public. It's not like I'm not privy to this. It's not like a behind the curtain type of thing. This is out there. I can try to find it, but it would take me 10 minutes to find it.
No, that's fine. No, that's great. I'm just saying, like, that's exciting. And again, you were talking about the possibility of like if the pack, what are they called?
Pachydyne.
next to my current stand-in that's probably going to hang out with some AWOK monkey, and they're roughly the same size. Like, yeah, I love that. And as we were talking yesterday, the variety on the shelf is awesome. So cool. Jason's saying Laranja and Crow are the first two soft goods figures, same wave, and Raving is a Raven.
So the Crow is
Have
a
I
Raven.
seen that? I'm not sure. Gotcha.
Raving. Now, like I said, I can't wait. So like I mentioned before, I have so many questions about the lore. I have so many questions about the comic book, about species that are going to come up in the future. Jason, we got to do another episode, and we've sort of agreed to wait till I have figures in hand. So hopefully that won't be too long. Ostradamus Toy says, I love that. Big fan of Ravens here in Baltimore. Googling. I like that you're commenting and I'm reading your comments. Like,
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, if you look, I can't remember. It's been on Facebook. So if you go on there's also an Animal Warriors of the Kingdom Facebook group. It's probably in there if you sort of jump in there, because I think I posted it in there at some point if somebody else didn't. But they're there. They're available. Now the last thing that we sort of said that we were going to talk about. Do we want to move on from comic books? Is that sort of enough? Did we sort of are people's appetites for the comic books satiated, or do they want more? If they want more, go get those comic books.
Yeah, like I think that's the right answer. Go get the comic
books. For $2. Like, I mean, of all the things that you can make bad decisions about, at least this one's only $2.
Actually, to clarify, what I heard earlier was that you would be willing to.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, just to be clear.
If you if you're watching and you want to read the first comic book and you haven't, message me. However, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, I don't know. I don't know how people get in touch. Let me know, and I'll financially back that $2 decision.
I'm looking through that Raven thing, but just kind of case in point, I'm looking at the Facebook group, and people are already sort of mocking up, like, oh, what if I took Cosmic Legions and used some of these parts? I don't know. It's gonna be pretty cool.
Jason says it's less than a cup of coffee. And Kevin, you guys maybe want to read them sooner than later. Honestly, it's a great read. I'm behind on a lot of my comic books, and instead of trying to catch up, I'm constantly badgering Jason to try to get more comic books. Toy Connection says these shall land to us in Canada soon enough. Yeah, well, not soon enough is my opinion, but they will be soon. Brick share screen. Well, you know what? I'll try. So we'll talk about the game, and then I'll try to find the some of the designs for future characters, and we'll kind of see how that go. We'll go from there.
I'll throw them in the private chat. I'll throw them in the private chat. I'll throw in links, and you can quickly get them. Yeah.
So this is the next wave, effectively. So we'll get wave 1, we'll get wave 2. This is the Primal Battles board game wave, which is where we will see some more army builders. We get that big Horrid Brute, which is sort of the Thane scaled figure. The Horrid Infantry, which comes with 2 heads. So you can sort of have 2 options there. The Feralus Stalker, as well as the board game exclusive. That's Chunari, Sergeant, I guess. But we get the board game, which I'm really excited about. So this is going to be a board game that you will use your 6-inch Animal Warriors of the Kingdom figures to use as your game pieces. So you will physically move your 6-inch scaled figures around the board. And there is a sort of game demo video on the Animal Warriors of the Kingdom site, as well as other places, which I'll try to find some of those links and put them in the description down below as well. But for the game board, you will get the board. You will get cardboard cutouts to represent the cover. So there's like full cover and half cover. You will get the exclusive figure. You'll also get cardboard cutouts. So if you only buy the board game, you will still be able to play. You just won't have the articulated figures. You'll have cardboard cutouts, which I think is a pretty cool approach. And I think that, like I was saying before, right? Like the world building that they're doing between the figures, the comic book, the board game, there's so many avenues for people to sort of come into this line and come into this brand. And I was gonna mention that, Jason. The like, whether you're an action figure guy, whether you're a comic book guy, whether you're like a tabletop gamer, I love that they're just building this out in a way that there's going to be different people that are talking about it, not just action figure guys. With the game, you also get stat cards. So each figure, each character will have unique abilities. So there's certain figures that will have sort of a stealth ability where they can basically, you remove the figure from the game board. They're invisible, so you'll remove them from the game board and they can move around. They can only move around so many directions and things like that, so you can kind of guess where they could go. But then you get other things like Thane has the ability to throw cover. So if you have a fast moving figure that can sort of move up the board quickly, but he can't get behind cover to get some defense, Thane can pick up and throw the cover in front of them to effectively protect them. That gold figure that you get with the game has added abilities if you have multiple troops along with him. So it's just going to be a really cool game. And I think, from the sounds of it, from everything that I've heard, having talked to Jeremy from Authority Figures Studios, who kind of developed the game in partnership with Jason, it's just going to be a fun game. Like even if you're not into Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, in terms of the figures or in terms of the comic books, it just sounds like a really great way to get people to play with toys. Yeah. And I can't wait. Again, I keep bothering Jeremy about like, okay, so like who's beta testing this game? Do you need any more game testers? So Scott says, not a game guide, but I'm really looking forward to trying it out. Watch the demo at Legion's Con, and it looks really fun. Yeah, Scott, you were at Legion's Con, so you actually got to see the whole thing. I just had to sort of enjoy the video from afar. I'm not a game guy as such either, but anything that can get me to play with my toys, I think is a bonus. Because as I've said before, I'm not a collector. I'm just a guy that has a whole bunch of toys. And I just love toys, and this is sort of creating that nostalgia in a way, yeah. Right? Like a lot of times the issue that I have with new IPs is that they don't quite, like, they don't pull me in, right? You can sell me a figure, yeah. But if I'm not invested in the figure because I don't have a backstory or you're gonna have character development through these stat cards too, because you're gonna get a feel for how these characters move, how these characters sort of fight, so on and so forth. Kevin says, I have to bail, but I'm really glad I watched this today. Thank you both. I'm super stoked for this line and all that comes along with it. Yes, you and me both, and hopefully everybody. Brick, I'm on a laptop getting these images. So you're reacting as you sort of look them up. Let me try to pull something up here.
Do you see them in the private chat? There's a bunch of links. Yeah, I was I had seen a handful of those, but I didn't see them all. And so yeah, I didn't realize that the Raven was there. Yeah, let's take a look.
So this is Hannibal. So this is the sort of Fairlist tribe leader. This is the father of Atreyu, who we've
Mhm.
seen in Wave One. This guy is a big, brutish, almost as big as Thane, but not quite as big as Thane.
And from there, you can ignore the other links. You can actually, I just realized, just
I can just
click
go
on
from this
the,
one.
yeah. Just
Yeah,
go
I
to the
think this
next.
one just yeah. Let me. All right, there we go. Hold on, let me clear up some of this stuff. It's here. There we go. That's a little bit better. So yeah, then we get this is that sort of brutish, oversized Kali, like I was talking about, with the clones. We now have sort of the possibility for something like this. I love this sort of shield,
Yep.
sort of wrist armor shield.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get there's Laranya, that's the orangutan. There's Raven, the Raven. So those are the first two that are going to have soft goods. So it looks like my
Man.
guess would be like this sort of wrap would be soft goods. Um, the Raven is going to get this sort of shoulder wrap as well. How
And
fun is it
Jason
with it?
named Jason named that Kali as Kali Prime.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping back and forth between. Scott said Hannibal. Yeah, Hannibal looks really, really good. Jason says Kali Prime. What else have we got? We've got the now the Fang Torn Knights, which are introduced in issue 3 as well. Jason, I have a question about these guys that I'll ask. I'll message you after because I want to know if these guys come with a particular accessory that they are
I
shown
was
with in the comic book.
gonna ask
Because
that
when I
too.
saw this, I was like, "This is amazing!" And then when they were introduced in the comic book, I was like, "Oh my gosh, they just got that much cooler!"
Yep.
Then
And
we get
again,
sort of
yeah,
the lizard
that's the
people.
moment when I saw these earlier. I was like, whoa.
So these guys show up in issue 2.
Yeah.
And we've moved on from spoilers. I guess I can change my banner. I don't need the spoiler alert banner anymore. They show up in issue 2, and they're awesome in issue 2. Well, it's just cool because we sort of get them in issue 2, and we sort of start seeing more characters sort of filling out as far as different species and things like that. This is the big bad in issue 2, right at the end. In issue 2, he's the Void. In the original comic, and in the sort of 4-inch scale, he was called Belarus. So we will see which name he sort of gets once he comes out in figure form. And that's just a sampling. So that's like some of the figures that are coming out. So some of the designs that we've seen. There's been more designs than that. You know, and there's just so many more. There's so many more designs. There's so many more species. We talked about the pachydyne. We talked about the elephants. There's the buffalo. There's it's just, and there's so much potential, right? Because you could do any. Oh, sorry, I should mention what's going on here. Oh, you've got your second screen. I didn't even realize you had your second screen on.
Oh no. That was just a drop in. Ignore that.
All right. I thought somebody else was trying to sneak on here for some reason. Jason says, if you read the issue, you'll know. So does it come? So is that the Fang-Torn Knight? Does that come with the additional
Look at the
accessory?
other. Yeah, if you look at the other comments before it, he was, I think, trying to leave a little bit of mystery. So he named that it will include a wolf head. So you'll have the armored head and a wolf head, I'm assuming.
That's not the accessory that I'm talking about.
Right. And then you read my comment, which is any other accessories?
Oh,
and then he
okay,
said,
okay.
yes.
Right.
Yeah. He says, if
All
you
right,
read the comic, you'll know, which is
That's
amazing.
That's going to be an army builder that I'm going to want multiples of for sure.
And that's the thing. On that note, on accessories, if you scroll through that sword, I don't know to what extent the armor, but and the other one with the gorilla, the Thane Prime with the giant, that shield potentially, and that sword are things that could work with other lines too.
Yep,
So there's some good
absolutely.
stuff there, man. There's some really cool stuff to play with, and I'm wrapping my head around some of the tooling even in that with raving. Sorry, thinking of raving. I'm just looking at the legs that are going to be new. I'm
Hmm.
assuming like there's just a lot going on and being invested in these, and so yeah, I don't have any other self interest in this other than to be like, hey, I would love to see these figures and then some. So if we
Hmm.
can get more people to get in on this,
Hmm.
let's do it. Let's do it. Yes, raving needs glow sticks.
I think I genuinely believe, like I genuinely believe, that this has the potential to be as big as sort of at least as big as any of the boutique brands, if not bigger. Um, and I look at something like Mythic Legions, right, where they
Mhm,
started off with a minimal amount of tooled parts. You know, there was only a couple different chests, a couple different sets of legs, so on and
mhm,
so forth. Um, but Jason's already showing us something like Raven, where there's a whole bunch of new tooling, or Kali Prime, or some of the other stuff, and some of the other stuff that I've heard about as well. That I'm like, there's no way you could use any tooling that exists. It would be all new tooling. Um, Wave, that Mala wave is going to have a bunch of new tooling in the same way that, you
mhm,
know, if you know Mythic Legions, like the 2.0 bodies, that's sort of the 2.0 body wave. And we don't have to wait a whole bunch of years. Like that's kind of like a 2023 or 2024 type thing. It's not
mhm,
like 5 years from now we'll have a 2.0 body. It's like in a year or maybe two.
mhm,
Um, so I'm looking at waves one and two, 1.5, and two as the Kickstarter wave, where people are going to be kicking themselves if they don't get them, because once the other molds start coming out, once the other bucks start coming out, this wave is really going to sort of come into its own, because like we've sort of looked at some of these designs, like we've talked about, you know, the elephants, so on and so forth. We didn't even bring up the hyena. We didn't even bring up the leopard,
mhm.
you know, so on and so forth.
To
I mean,
translate real quick from sort of like action figure Mythic Legion speak, the 2.0, effectively what that means is in wave 3, we're getting a woman, right? A female buck,
yes.
since we're talking about animals,
Yeah.
which again is really cool that we're going to have that much variety. And have you, I haven't looked at them closely enough, but how much of that is going to be, say, shared with this raving, maybe like the same legs, or I don't know.
If I had to guess, and I don't know because I've only seen digital renders of the raving,
Right.
maybe upper arms and upper legs,
Gotcha.
and torso.
Yeah.
But that female wave, it's effectively like skinnier arms, skinnier legs. So there's
Mhm.
a rabbit in that wave.
That's right.
There's like a chimp, so like a smaller ape in that wave. You're going to look them up, aren't you?
Yeah, because I was like, I saw some of these come out, but I didn't see all of them, and
And those ones are tooled. Like those ones well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I don't know that. Those ones
right.
they at least made like 3D printed, or however they've made them. There are physical versions of those. Um, which I could probably look up. I'll hold on. Let me pull it down. We'll chat while I'm sort of looking them up, so that you don't have to and send me a link, because they are just on Facebook, and I know where they should be. Um,
Which
and it shouldn't take.
again, yeah, these things are in different places, and I think it's really great to be able to like do these videos and kind of talk with folks and sort of point them out, send them the right way, because
Mhm.
there is a lot of good stuff out there. Even me, who's kind of been this weird fanatic over this toy line that hasn't even come out yet, but just conceptually, there's stuff that I'm totally missing, right? That I haven't seen. So can't wait to have these in hand. And right now, for me, it's just seeing all these different. Again, being the kind of toy collector slash player that I am, I'm also looking at parts and what I can mix and match, and it's good stuff.
My computer doesn't want. Why does it want to show me the pictures from this group? This is frustrating.
I don't know, man, but I'll tell you what's frustrating is hearing that you've seen all these things, and I'm sitting here like, huh? Oh, really, Adam?
Well, that's
Tell
the
me
thing is
more.
I'm trying not to speak out of turn. I don't at
Yes,
this
I know.
point. I don't think I've seen anything that hasn't been at least like revealed um, in some capacity. Oh, here's a good picture. This one I think will work. So this is
Oh, there you go.
from Legion's Con this year. So there we have Thane.
Look at that
Thane's
hyena.
helmeted head that you're going to get with Thane. And then Lexion, which is Jason's personal favorite, I think. And then we have Mala. We have the rabbit. We have there's the hyena on the far side there with Jadu behind him. There's that chimpanzee sort of smaller scale horrid assassin. And then the I think that's a jaguar. I'm not 100% certain, but there's new pieces in there too, and you can't see it from this picture, but both the sort of jaguar type and the hyena get sort of a like a neck piece to sort of fill it out a little bit, so that
I was gonna say they look thicker.
they do look thicker, and
But you're saying it's just that piece, the arms and torso are
Mhm.
actually the same. Awesome. So smart.
It really is. Let me see. No, these are just Facebook. These are
Hey, those guys, you got a Lost Boys shirt.
let me see if I can find a better shot of those particular figures, since we're here, because like I said, I know that they're there. I know that they're sort of available to be seen.
I
But yeah,
don't, and I don't know how much, time you're looking at, but also, we haven't even talked about sort of the posability of these things and how they kind of have the hindsight of coming out a little later and seeing what's out there and what people have been asking for and trying to actually address some of that in the way they engineered these things.
mhm.
But I don't know, because I know those things are out there. I don't know how prepared we are to find those videos, but Jason's been like, hanging out at coffee shops and going live and being like, hey, look at this figure, and actually playing with factory figures and showing us what you can do with them. And it's been really cool to see.
Oh, there's a boar. No, I don't think that's the same boar that we saw in
Right.
issue 3 there.
This one's much more sort of humanoid, right?
Yeah, this
That
one's a
one.
more humanoid one. The one that we saw in the comic book was more like that. He was on all fours and stuff like that. But also like a genetically sort of modified
Yep.
experiment from Jadu. So like the ability to speak, but still very much a boar. Ostradamus says raving needs glow sticks. Trevor says these are amazing looking. Can't wait to get them in hand. Yeah, absolutely. David, Mr. Backtastic says, hey, Adam, these figures look awesome. Can't wait for you to get them so I can see you reviewing them on the channel and I can live vicariously through you and still save money. And Payne's Toy Samples just joined us. Good evening to you, sir. Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get them. I think that these, like I keep saying, if you just get one, if people just get one and just get it in hand, because I think they're going to be a really, really great figure to have in hand. They look great, but I think having one for your collection is really the way to go with these. Just like I think for Mythic Legions, like having them in hand really makes you appreciate sort of how good they are. I think this is going to be a similar line where they'll look great from afar, but they'll look even better up close. I'm trying to find a picture that sort of shows that neck piece better than others.
But I love that. Like, again, Mythic Legions has been doing that and kind of like demonstrating what's possible. Like with that unknown one recently, they're like, hey, what if you use a different neck peg and how you can achieve a different look with that piece?
Yeah.
Now it just, again, opens up a whole possibility, which is like, again, coming from the Lego world, it's one of those things where people post and they're like, look what I did with this piece. And all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, and there's a run on that piece to kind of achieve it.
Yeah,
So I love that. It's like you're going to work with that same figure, that same basic buck, but what else can you do? I love it.
Yeah. You know what? I could look for these for hours, and we could do multiple videos on this on just the spoilers and stuff alone, right?
Yeah, truth be told, it doesn't have to be the only time we get together to talk about this, because but I am actually interested in knowing maybe what you know, or if Jason's still here, what where are we at with seeing things come in? You kind of mentioned it earlier, like when you were sort of addressing wave one, trying to get out. Yeah, what are we looking at? Just so folks have an idea.
So to the best of my understanding, and I'm, you know, I'm not I'm not on the inside. I'm somebody on the outside that asks a lot of questions and sort of likes to get the information for myself, and I'm happy to share what I have been told. Wave one is produced. It's boxed. It's ready to go. It's either, you know, finished at the warehouse waiting to get on a boat, or it's on a boat. The last update that I heard was sometime in February for delivery. So
great.
So we're effectively a month away, a month and a half. Depending on where you are. I mean, I think that's going to factor in. I mean, I'm in Canada, so I'll probably get them after everybody else, just because of the logistics of it. But yeah, it's crazy, because when I did a video with Jason and Jeremy 6 months ago, it felt like it was still, you know, a long ways away. Like it still felt like a long ways out, you know, when you know, the backer kit went live, it felt like a long time before we were going to see anything. When it was the Kickstarter, it felt like, well, we'll get these eventually, but whatever.
Right.
But this is like now, you know, like this is imminent, right? And in the world that we live in, I mean, we've talked about this before, Brick. I think we talked about this, you know, last night even. You know, this constant need to have things now is so prevalent with collectors, that I think there's people that are kind of like chomping at the bit to get these. I'm just really excited that we're ever going to get these. And like I sort of said at the top, like I'm really happy to be getting wave one only in some respects, because I can spend more time with each of those figures than if I got, you know, 3 waves all at once. That's Yes, AI's just jumped on. Yes, I shaved my face. You're not the first person to but everybody seems to have mentioned it, which is like, I knew it was going to happen. I was debating whether I waited till after that we did this video, but then I was like, no, I got to get it out of the way, because I got too much other stuff to do. I'm going on vacation tomorrow, and so I needed to get stuff done, and so that just happened to happen earlier rather than later.
You should have given us a handlebar actually for this video, and then shave that off after.
Well, I've done just the mustache, and people didn't mention anything about it. But as soon as everything's gone, apparently it's a big deal. Apparently this is I
love that for this line,
because of this, like, because people are going to be like, did you see the video where Adam shaved? Like, is this going to be a thing? I don't think so.
He shaved for the one where it was probably most appropriate to have as much fur as possible.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true.
Did you see the message from Jason? Well, yeah,
I did, helpful. And I wanted to sort of wait so that we could actually sort of address it. Jason said, I already have samples for Primal Wave 3. We are already tooling Wave 4, which is the Gladiator Wave, and we'll start tooling Wave 5, which is the Mala Wave, this summer. And if people don't know, and I'll probably get this wrong, forgive me if I do, and Jason, feel free to correct me. But basically the process is design, and then sort of test, and then tool, and then manufacture. So if the tooling's there, it's presumably now just sort of in the queue to be manufactured, because the tooling is sort of the last thing. There's also, you know, there's paint samples and all that kind of stuff. There's a whole bunch of other little steps, but effectively design, tooling, manufacture is so the Primal Wave, which is Wave 3, which is the one that we showed, he already has samples, which means it's it's not quite in production yet, but it's prepping for production. Wave 4, which we didn't even show, which is alternate colorways for Atreyu and Pale, and then a couple other figures. And then Wave 4, which, like I said, is Mala. Actually, sorry, no, the Gladiator Wave is alternate colors for Pale and Atreyu. It's and then that horrid the hyena and the jaguar, I believe. It might not be a jaguar. I just keep saying that it's a jaguar. Anyway, you get the point. It's a yellowish orange spotted feline. So there you go. That's wave 4, and then, or sorry, that's the Gladiator wave, and then he says wave 4 twice. That's why it keeps confusing me. The Gladiator wave is those 4, and then the following wave, the Mala wave, is Mala, Jadu, the rabbit, and the horrid assassin, the smaller guy. So that wave I'm really excited about, because that's when sort of the new buck, more possibilities, customizing potential with the smaller size figures, so on and so forth. So
yeah, and if I'm looking at, I'm at the site, so what I'm hearing is February, right around the corner, we get wave 1. It shouldn't be too long after that we get 1.5 effectively, and 2. And then, as you see from Jason's message here, that there's stuff coming after that, and there's no necessarily any reason to believe that there's more happening. So it's pretty exciting. Like it feels like 2023 is going to be a year of animals, animal warriors of the kingdom. And we've got just, some on a real practical end. If you're on the site, like, where do you get these? You can go to their site, spirittoys.com, and you can order them there. Big Bad Toy Store also has them. eCollectibles up in Canada has them, and other fine retailers, I'm assuming. But then I'm looking at price, and we kind of glossed over it a little when we saw that Vero Atlas was a little bit more. Most of the sort of standard figures are $35, $34.99, at least from their site. And again, I'm looking at figures here as far as Masterverse goes. Generally, they were around a little over 20 here in the Bay Area, but the more sort of deluxe figures that I tend to put on par with what is being offered here, can be anywhere from $33, $32.99, or in the case of Beastman, that was $40.50, $40.49 over here.
Bonkers.
And I put those next to these, and these are like massive corporations with a much larger run, right? They're making way more figures than these are being produced. And I look at these, at least from what I've seen, the paint apps, the detail, the sculpt are on par with what I'm getting from, like a Mythic Legions, right? That sort of quality.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at. And if you're wondering, like the bigger gorilla body, at least the one that we know is being offered so far, General Thane, is on their site for $15.9. I don't remember. It wasn't that much when I pre-ordered back on the backer kit. So that's kind of, it seems like, where they're landing. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about here, as far as like where you can get these figures, how much you can get them for. Get the one, as Adam suggests, right?
Just get one.
Just one.
Just get one. What's the worst that could happen?
The worst that could happen. You could be like me. Oh, add to cart. Oh, wait, there's that too. Add to cart. Oh, wait, add to cart.
Buy all of them and then change your mind after.
And then Jason gets emails from me. He's like, hey, just, I ended up ordering multiple orders.
Yeah. Is there still time to adjust my order just a little bit?
Yeah.
AI says, I love the shiny paint for the armor used, really makes it pop. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first one's free.
I wish that were true. Maybe. Yeah, I wish that were true.
Well, like I said, if somebody wants to read the first issue of the comic book, let me know and I'll pay for it.
Yes, he's saying the comic book is first one's free.
The comic book, the first issue of the comic.
To be clear.
but AI mentioned the armor, and absolutely, like the paint apps on those, like the shiny metallic armor, um,
Mhm.
looks absolutely stunning. The paint looks great. Jason kept like showing the eyes and being like, "Oh, but we're improving the eyes," and I was like, "Those eyes look fantastic. What do you? I don't understand what." But that's how it is. So AI says that's how all bad decisions starts at just one. Yeah, exactly. That's the
There's
point.
also sort of like those accessories. There's a glow in the dark set for you and
Yeah.
AWOK. I feel like
Well, that was
Turtles fans, like, there's real cool stuff happening then. They're supposed to be
those
like
glow in the dark
radiated,
ones.
irradiated.
The radiated weapon set. Yeah, the
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one, like, man, I'm just gonna put those like in figures that stand right near like my office door, so that when I turn the
Hmm.
lights off as I'm leaving at night, they'll still sort of have that comforting
Yeah,
glow.
yeah.
I can't wait for those. I love that. There's um back in one of the 4-inch wave Kickstarters, there was like an unlock tier
Hmm.
that goes back to the original comic book where Pale had an ability where he could go invisible, and it was called Spectral Pale.
Mm.
Can we all lean on Jason to make a Spectral Pale? It was like a clear pale, and I need that now. I
Yeah.
really, really want to get that figure.
And a blue
Uh,
Hagnon while we're at it. And a dragon. Come on. No,
well,
yes.
that's the thing. That's the
Yeah.
Hagnon. I have Hagnon, which is like a
Right.
ghost figure in Mythic
Yeah.
Legions. And when I saw Spectral Pale when I was going through like all the old Kickstarters, and in the comic book, the first version of the graphic novel, Pale has these different sort of mystical abilities, um, and that's one of them. And I was like, man, that would make a great figure. And then from there, good shout there, Jeremy. Do a custom, paint it invisible. Or I'll just leave a gap on my shelf, and I'll be like, "That's where my Spectral Pale is." Um, AI said, "Oh, that's he's chatting amongst themselves." Um, but yeah, I started thinking too. If we don't get Spectral Pale, once we get some of the more like magical, mystical stuff, I would love to see translucent like hands, where they're like magic wielding. If we get
Mm.
there in the comic
Mm.
book,
Mm. Hmm.
um and I know that there is sort of those elements coming up. I know that Mala has, there is going to be some more magical mystical elements coming. So I'm just saying, Spectral
Yeah.
Pale could make it at some point.
And I love that idea for all toy lines. That notion of like, hey, if we have magic users, give me
Give me the magic
the
hands.
give me the magic hands.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. Jeremy says he'll put Spectral Pale next to the action figure of his dad. Oh, yeah.
I don't know Jeremy, but yeah, and that joke lands a particular way.
Well, anyway, we pretty much covered everything that sort of is out, that is coming out in the near future. When I get my beta testing version of the board game, I will let you guys know, and I'll do a review of that. I can only assume that it's in the mail, Jeremy. I expect to see it when I get home from my holidays. We'll go from there. Um, but as I said, check out the comic book, $2 each. Go and get the Vero Atlas figure while you still can, because it's only going to go up in price. If you're only getting one, that's the Kickstarter exclusive, so get it while you can. Like I said, it's a minimum order quantity one. Once they're gone, they're gone. They're not making them anymore. And it comes with that exclusive. It comes with that exclusive accessory, which looks super badass. Jeremy's going to deliver the beta sample personally, so that's nice of him. He's not that far away. He's in Wisconsin, and I'm on the West Coast, so that's. I mean, it's probably a few days drive, but no big deal. Um, Worth it. It'll be worth it. Come, wait till it's warmer here, so you can at least make it worthwhile. Jeremy said I have to walk through because I'm on a Canadian no-fly list. I'm glad I'm not, because I got to get on a plane tomorrow. Or maybe I'll find out tomorrow that I am. I hope not.
I mean, you could fly over here to the Bay Area, San Francisco, and drop one off from me, and then, you know, just saying, and then I could bring it up to Canada. I'm still legal to fly in Canada.
There's possibilities. That's we can make it happen.
Yeah.
Master Versal says I would say yes to the comic. I'm a bit far away out here in Eternia, but I get the comic series there. So it's a digital copy. So Master Versal, send me your email. However you contact people. I don't know if there's a way to message on YouTube, but I'm on Instagram as well, and I imagine you are. It's the same, highly articulate. Actually, the link's down below for the Instagram. So message me on Instagram. I'll make sure you get a copy of the comic.
Dope.
Because it's awesome. It's so good.
Yep.
On that note, we've talked about the figures in waves 1, 1.5, 2, the game. We've talked about the comic books. We've sort of, you know, whet our appetites for what's to come. And we're at an hour and 45, so I think we'll probably wrap it up here and pick this up once we get figures in hand, which won't be that long.
Yeah.
So we'll do this all again very soon. I'm gonna get Jason and Jeremy on again once we have figures in hand, and we can chat more about what we've been waiting for. Right, we've been talking about this stuff all hypothetically, but once we have it in hand, it's going to be a totally different ball game. But for Brick and myself, thank you guys all for joining. The links, if you want more of me or if you want more of Brick, the links are down below. Go follow Brick's channel. Go follow Brick's Instagram. Find the other people in the comments. Go follow them. AI's got his stuff. Master Versal's got his stuff. Oz was in the comments. Check out everybody's stuff, man. Like there's so many people doing stuff way better than I am. So if you're here, you know, go get some professional content somewhere else. But on that note, it's been a pleasure, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Not as soon as usual, but I'll talk to you again soon. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.